The world's most dangerous prisoners are those who have committed heinous crimes in their lives. And we all know prisons are terrifying places. Well, that's mostly because of those inside them. We will occasionally see bad criminals in the news. However, those on this list are the most terrifying and dangerous inmates you've probably never heard of. However, before we proceed, please subscribe to this channel. So without wasting time, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have The Real Pennywise. The book, miniseries, and film It are all about a clown who goes around scaring kids and taking their lives. This is good for a scare, but it's all made up, right? Not exactly, because in the 1980s, when the film was set, there was a real-life Pennywise. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and he appeared to be a normal husband and father on the outside. But he had a crazy secret life. He began dressing up as the character Pogo the Clown. Pogo was supposed to be like Bozo, but as I previously stated, he is more like Pennywise. This is because he would volunteer at children's parties. During this time, he would kidnap as many children as he could and then kill them. They discovered missing people in his home and a nearby river. He's gone down as one of the most terrifying and dangerous criminals ever. Fortunately, he's behind bars today, but that doesn't change how terrifying he is. I'm pretty sure this guy has turned a lot of people off of clowns for good. Next up is Lobster Boy. This criminal is odd and has led one of the strangest lives ever. Grady Franklin Stiles Jr. is his full name. He was given the nickname Lost Boy because of a condition that runs in his family. He entered the carnival at the age of 7 because he could do so many things with his odd hands. He later married another carnival performer, but as he aged, he became angry and drank far too much, turning evil. He was abusive to his wife and 4 children, 2 of whom had hands like his. When one of his female kids who did not have odd hands grew up and married, he became jealous of her husband and shot him in the face. He was imprisoned but released years later. He then began to say that he would do the same thing to his wife because she had remarried while he was imprisoned. His wife was unwilling to take any chances, so she paid another carnival employee $1,500 to kill him. Nobody came to his funeral, and all that was left on his grave was his name and 2 praying hands, which only added insult to injury. Next up is Eyeball Man. Not only is he one of the scariest and most dangerous criminals on the planet, but he's also one of the scariest looking men on the planet. He was arrested in 2012 for shooting a cop during a bathroom argument. That's bad enough, but it's not what got him media attention. The terrifying tattoos he had all over his face drew his attention. He's obsessed with tattoos and has over 20 on his face alone, but that's not the only place he has them. He also has a tattooed black eyeball, which is why many people refer to him as Eyeball Man, and his real name is Jason Barnum. This guy is terrifying. Coming up next is the Rostov Ripper. The Red Ripper is the nickname given to this individual. It's a spoof of Jack the Ripper, who murdered hundreds of women in England many years ago. And the Rostov part is because this guy is from Rostov, which is now part of Russia. His real name is Andrei Chikatilo, and he murdered over 52 women and children over 12 years. For many years, he was a suspect in numerous crimes and was in and out of prison, but there was never enough evidence to convict him of any serious crime. Finally, he was apprehended by police in 1990 when he confessed to killing only 36 people. Next up is Monster. There's a reason this woman is referred to as a monster. That's because she's so evil. It's Oscar-worthy. And yes, a film was made about her and her crimes, and Charlize Theron won numerous awards for her performance in the film Monster. The monster's name is Aileen Wuornos, and she is the only female on this list. But don't worry, ladies, this is a good thing, and she is terrible. Between 1989 and 1990, she was responsible for the deaths of 7 men. Although she had a difficult childhood, people were outraged when her crimes were revealed in 1991. She was arrested and confessed to everything 4 days later. She remained in jail for about 11 more years until she passed away herself thanks to the jury vote. Next up is a game show contestant. This is not only one of the scariest and most dangerous men ever, but also one of the creepiest. Rodney Alcala killed 5 women in the 1970s, but he later admitted to doing it 34 more times, and cops believe he's done it more than 140 times across the United States, after additional investigations. But the creepy thing about this guy is that he will be remembered for his appearance on a game show called The Dating Game, which he won. The host introduced him as a photographer, which is unsettling because that was where he learned about his victims, who were mostly models. Next up is Underwear Strangler. Yeah, as you can tell by his name, he's a bit strange. The real name of this guy is Johan Underweger, but he went by Jack. He's Australian, and since his youth, he's been in and out of jail for petty theft and other offenses. He changed for the worse in 1974 when he strangled a woman with her own bra until she died. He then did this to about 40 more women before moving to Los Angeles to do some more. He was apprehended but was later released from prison, and then he repeated it 4 times more. Finally, the LAPD arrested him and sentenced him to life in prison. Next up is Dr. Death. Harold Shipman, also known as Dr. Death, is suspected of murdering at least 218 patients, though the total is likely to be closer to 250. Between 1972 and 1998, this doctor worked in 2 different offices in London, killing the entire time. He wasn't caught until several people raised red flags, including an undertaker who was surprised by the sheer number of cremation certificates Shipman was a part of, as well as the fact that the majority of the cases involved elderly women who died in bed during the day rather than at night. The investigation was messed up, and Shipman continued to kill until he became greedy and attempted to forge a will for a victim that named him beneficiary, prompting the victim's daughter to become suspicious. He was convicted in 2000 and committed suicide in prison in 2004. Next up is BTK. The real name of this man is Dennis Rader, but the authorities and the media referred to him as BTK. I'm not going to explain what that means, but between 1974 and 1991, he killed at least 10 people in Kansas, USA, and, like the Zodiac, he would taunt and tease the police with letters mocking their inability to catch him. However, it was these letters that led to his arrest in 2005. But what's interesting is how they discovered Dennis was the BTK. He sent them a floppy disk with a message mocking the cops, but the cops were able to recover a deleted file containing a photograph of him at his church. They were able to track him down and arrest him thanks to his DNA samples on the disk and a photograph of him at the church. He was sentenced to prison in 2005 and remains in prison to this day. And don't worry, he's not coming out anytime soon. Finally, on the top spot of our list is Terrible Tommy. When prisoner Thomas Silverstein died in a Colorado hospital at the age of 67, it marked the end of one of the country's longest stays in solitary confinement. Silverstein, nicknamed Terrible Tommy while in prison, was serving a life sentence with no chance of parole. He'd spent 35 years of his sentence, or more than half his life, alone in a soundproof cell with the lights on 24 hours a day. Silverstein, dubbed America's most dangerous prisoner, was placed in solitary confinement after brutally murdering prison guard Merle Klutz. On October 22, 1983, the killer was allowed to leave his cell at Marion Supermax Prison for a shower and convinced Klutz to walk ahead of him. He was able to get another inmate to hand him a shank and undo his handcuffs with a homemade key. That's all for today. Do well to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well.